On June 14th, 2013, Sony released a new game. It was kind of a big deal. The Last of Us was an immediate critical and commercial smash hit, becoming the fourth best-selling game on the PlayStation 3. Its simple yet effective story struck a chord with many players, especially the dynamic between the two central characters. Its mix of stealth and shooter gameplay, combined with environmental storytelling and traversal puzzles, was also acclaimed. The following spring, Naughty Dog, the game's developer, would win Best Studio at the Final Spike Video Game Awards. Neil Druckmann, the game's co-director and writer, would receive an award from the Writers Guild of America for his work on the game. The Last of Us would win Game of the Year at the Game Developers Choice Awards, the BAFTAs, and the DICE Awards, where it would also take home awards for Best Game Direction, Animation, Art Direction, Sound Design, Story, Visual Engineering, Character Performance, Adventure Game of the Year, and Outstanding Innovation. Shortly after this, an enhanced version of the game would release on the PlayStation 4. It would go on to sell 18.83 million more copies, becoming the sixth best-selling game on that console. By every conceivable metric, The Last of Us was a massive success. When something is that big of a hit, everyone knows what time it is. It's sequel time. Looking back, The Last of Us is kind of a weird game to make a sequel to. It is a complete work that tells one single story with a satisfying conclusion. Both central characters go through complete arcs. Even beyond that, it leaves gigantic shoes to fill. The expectations for a sequel are through the roof. That being said, while the game is acclaimed, it's not for everyone. Certain players might not like the story, the amount of cutscenes, or its ultra-linear design. Also, when a title gets this much attention, it will inevitably receive the dreaded descriptor of overrated. Now, I personally don't think that calling something overrated is a valid critique, since it's a reaction to the work's reception as opposed to the work itself, but if someone calls The Last of Us overrated, I am not going to argue with them. This puts a potential follow-up in a tough predicament. One side of the aisle wants another home run, to match, if not surpass, the original. The other side is waiting for it to fail. What could possibly go wrong? Announced in 2016, teased for years, and released on June 19, 2020, The Last of Us Part 2 stands as one of the most polarizing games, maybe ever? Like the original, it garnered critical acclaim, won several awards, and sold well. It moved over 10 million units and became the 13th best-selling PlayStation 4 game. But, oh man, a very large, very vocal crowd of players absolutely hated this game, hated the story, hated the changes it made to the old characters, hated the new characters, hated the ending. To this day, no game can derail a conversation as quickly as The Last of Us Part 2. And yet, this game is masterfully constructed. This isn't a case of a publisher pumping out a cheap cash grab for a quick buck. No, this game is as finely tuned as they come, delivering a carefully crafted experience. The stealth action gameplay is as tense as ever. It expands on the world of the original. It rewards player creativity. It pulls a lot of the same tricks. So, what changed? On a narrative level, The Last of Us Part 2 systematically tears down everything the original game stood for. It acts as a mirror to the first game, giving the exact opposite experience of the first. It is ideologically opposed to its predecessor. The Last of Us Part 2 is the greatest sequel betrayal of all time. The Last of Us Part 1 begins with a death. During a night of widespread panic, a man named Joel tries to escape with his brother and his daughter. He protects her the best he can, shielding her from the madness. But it's not enough. The panic was a result of a fungal outbreak. If infected, the fungus would take over a person's nervous system, turning them into hungry husks of who they used to be. After the opening scene, the story skips forward a few years. Now in Boston, Joel is a smuggler, a broken, empty shell of the person he once was. Soon he receives the smuggling job that will change his life forever. He must transport a teenage girl to the Fireflies, a resistance group. The girl, named Ellie, is immune to the infection. She might be the key to finding a cure and saving the world. Their journey across the United States is long. They must fight everyone in their path. The ending of The Last of Us mirrors the opening. In order to study Ellie's immunity, her brain will be removed. Upon learning this, Joel fights his way through the hospital to the operating room. He shoots the surgeon, grabs Ellie, and escapes. This time, it's enough. This is a story about found family, about finding the smallest glimmer of hope in the bleakest of situations. Two broken, empty people can face all odds and carry on. What would you do to protect the people you love? The Last of Us Part 2 also begins with a death. Joel, Ellie, and their companions live in Jackson, Wyoming. Life is hard, but stable. Every so often, they patrol the perimeter of the settlement, making sure no threats lurk nearby. A band of outsiders survey the settlement. They're plotting something terrible. One of the outsiders, a woman named Abby, is attacked by a horde of infected. She's rescued by Joel and his brother Tommy, who are out on patrol. The three of them escape the horde and join the rest of the strangers, a militia group called the Washington Liberation Front, or WLF. They learn that Joel is the one they've been searching for. Ellie and her girlfriend Dina search for the brothers, ultimately finding the WLF outpost, just in time to witness Abby bash Joel's skull in with a golf club. The Last of Us Part 2 is a story about revenge. Tommy heads to Seattle to make the culprits pay. Ellie and Dina follow shortly after. She will track the WLF, stumble into an ongoing turf war, and kill a lot, and I mean a lot, of people. Ellie's arc in Part 2 is shaped like a downward spiral. Her ultimate goal is to get revenge, to enact violence. What would you do to destroy the people you hate? Part 1 is also rather violent. Joel will strangle and shoot countless people standing between him and his goal, but it's all in service of a greater mission. All of this death and destruction is collateral damage. In Part 2, Ellie does a lot of shooting and stabbing, but these are just cannon fodder, people to kill in order to get to the person she ultimately wants to kill. Ellie is not trying to see a better future, she's trying to avenge someone who can never come back. That being said, The Last of Us Part 2 is aware of this. As the story progresses, Ellie will grow exhausted and desperate. The light of hope at the end of the tunnel hasn't been snuffed out, it doesn't even exist. Ellie instead wanders a dark tunnel of dread. The US is a really big place. Terrain, climate, and culture vary widely between regions, and Part 1 takes advantage of these differences. The game has unstoppable forward momentum. The duo travels through Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. The game takes place over the course of a year. The blistering hot summer sun leads to the chilly mountain autumn, which leads to the uncaring winter. Joel and Ellie never look back. Every time skip is a jump forward, resulting in an ultra-linear structure. The gameplay and level design reflect this choice. There may be small areas to explore, but there is only one critical path forward. After vaulting over a wall or going through a door, the world behind is forever locked away. Keep moving forward, never look back. The Last of Us Part 2 departs from this. Part 2 opens with that bit in Jackson that sets the scene and the stakes. After that, Ellie travels to Seattle. The first day concludes with her taking shelter in an old theater. The next day, she goes on a mission to find Joel's brother Tommy and/or information on Abby's whereabouts. Because this is The Last of Us, this involves killing a bunch of people at a hospital. Once that's done, she returns to that same theater. The next day, she has a fateful run-in with WLF members at an aquarium, and then returns to the theater once again, where she and Abby finally cross paths. Instead of the story having a forward momentum, the progress feels stunted. The characters are trapped in Seattle, always returning to the theater. That is, until The Last of Us Part 2 performs its greatest trick. We experience the same 3 days again, this time from Abby's perspective. The WLF militia has set up camp in a football stadium, right in the middle of Seraphite territory. The Seraphites are a devout religious group who live off the land, and the two factions are at odds with one another. While investigating Seraphite activity, Owen, Abby's ex, goes missing. She goes to find them, but because nothing ever good happens in Last of Us land, she gets captured by a group of Seraphites, is tortured, and then rescued by a pair of outcast Seraphite siblings. They narrowly escape. The sister, Yara, has a broken arm. Abby gets her and her brother Lev to safety, then parts ways with them. She arrives at the aquarium where she finds Owen. But the next morning, Abby does the unthinkable. She looks back. Abby retraces her steps, traversing the same path she did the night before to find the siblings. They reunite, then return to the aquarium. Abby and Lev will go on a mission to find medical supplies, ending up back at the aquarium. The third day, she will travel to the Seraphite encampment and then return to the aquarium, where she sees the effects of Ellie's carnage. This leads to the showdown at the theater. After this, there's a time skip forward and a final chapter in California. So, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. While part 1 always looks forward towards the next thing, part 2, by comparison, seems lost, confused, frustrated. The characters' goals don't have clear destinations. Each day is filled with danger and close calls, brutality and pain, and each day also ends where it began, the theater or the aquarium. We also see the same environments from different perspectives. The hospital is home to a combat sequence in one campaign, and a storytelling turned boss fight sequence in the other. Both characters invade each other's home base. The bulk of the game is set around Seattle. And yet, the same linear level design is present. Like in the original game, there will only be one single path ahead. Characters cross a series of points of no return. The game keeps pushing the player forward, maintaining that momentum, but the story structure is at odds with this design. The two different styles draw attention to one another, vie for dominance. It captures that feeling of wanting to just get out there and do what you came here to do, but being unable to actually do anything about it. The best way I can describe the feeling of part 2 is stir-crazy, like a caged animal almost. Keep in mind, this game came out in the summer of 2020, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, in a time when social and political tensions were running high, in a time when there was so much uncertainty and loss. When many of us were feeling trapped and unable to do anything, here comes a game all about being trapped and unable to do anything. It's temporally claustrophobic, trapped in the same 3 days, trapped in a series of memories. All you can do is go forward, but to where? In a game with explicit violence, an important question to ask is who that violence is being enacted upon. It's what makes fighting monsters or machines or the undead easy. The things the player kills aren't human, they are less than human. But when the combatants are human, who are they? Well, the enemy, of course. Someone who belongs to some group that is beyond saving. Someone who stands in the way of what the player character is attempting to accomplish. The enemy is dehumanized in order to make the player feel okay blasting them. But, of course, dehumanizing others is extremely dangerous. Many works have wrestled with this idea before, rehumanizing those who have been dehumanized, or at least questioning and exploring how and why dehumanization occurs. In The Last of Us Part 1, Joel will kill a whole lot of infected, but also a lot of uninfected too. The game makes it clear, though, that these people are dangerous. They will shoot first. These aren't just random civilians, they're pawns of the military state, they're violent looters, they're crazed cannibals. This comes to a head in the final sequence of the first game. Joel makes it to the hospital where the Firefly Resistance resides. They believe it is moral to kill Ellie and find a cure for the infection, whereas Joel only cares about saving the one at the potential expense of many. The game will put the player in Joel's shoes. In order to see the ending, they will have to mow down a bunch of people who are trying to find a cure. The final time the player fires Joel's gun is in the operating room, killing the surgeon about to embark on this experimental procedure. We, the audience, understand this action, but we also understand what the surgeon was attempting to do. The enemy isn't dehumanized. The game puts the characters in tough predicaments, but only gives the player one path forward. The morals may be gray, but the available actions are as binary as they come. Or, to put it another way, The Last of Us will have you kill a puppy and then make you feel bad about it. This idea has been brought to the forefront in the sequel. It spends the entire game having the player kill characters while humanizing them at the same time. From the outset, Part 2 is all about the fallout of Joel's decision. This is why Abby and her companions seek revenge on Joel. The surgeon Joel killed was Abby's father. The enemy now has a name and a family. At the end of the second day in Ellie's campaign, she arrives at this hospital and turns it into a war zone. She fights her way through, eviscerating the WLF members one by one. In an especially brutal scene, Ellie confronts a friend of Abby's, demanding information from her. The cutscene stalls, and the square button icon appears. The player only has one option. Several hours later in Abby's campaign, she visits the same hospital on the same day. We will meet these characters mere hours before their gruesome demise. We'll learn their names, we'll discover things about them. they will be humanized. I mean, the whole finale of the third Seattle day is the showdown between Ellie and Abby. The player controls the latter character and the current opponent. I mean, her face is on the box. This idea of there not being any true villains, that every person's actions are justified in their own way, that was present in Part 1, but oh man, does Part 2 beat you over the head with it. It literally makes you kill a dog and feel bad about it. Since Part 2 leans so heavily into this idea, it does have two major side effects. It makes the violence in this story all the more senseless. Once the player gets a grasp on what the game is going for, it can be kind of hard to engage with it. It's a violent game that says violence is bad over and over and over again. More egregiously though, the ultra-humanization sticks out in moments when it doesn't happen. It's been long enough. We have to talk about the Seraphites. While the main conflict is between Ellie's group from Jackson and Abby and her companions from the WLF, a third group is embroiled in this conflict. They live off the land, away from the rest of society, and believe the outbreak was some sort of divine retribution. The WLF and the Seraphites are at war with one another when the story begins. They battle for control over Seattle. If we're to believe what the WLF says, they're nothing but savage cultists. They've been dehumanized. On the first day of Abby's campaign, she gets captured by the Seraphites, then rescued by two of them, siblings Yara and Lev. She learns that the two of them have been exiled from the group for defying their customs. As the story progresses, Abby and Lev will get to know each other better. Abby will learn about Seraphite customs and Lev will learn about the WLF. They will come to see the ongoing conflict from different perspectives. On the surface, this seems pretty standard. Enemies learn that they don't have to be enemies. But what about the rest of the Seraphites? For a story that spends a good portion of its runtime trying to get the player to empathize with a killer, it seems more than a little jarring that there is one group whose sole purpose is to be antagonistic. They are portrayed as primitive, cultish, and okay to kill in the hundreds. The narrative takes a we're all human approach. It attempts to adopt a centrist worldview, but that centricity is only offered to certain groups and characters. When one group is portrayed in only a negative light, the work is no longer centrist. The morals aren't gray. The Last of Us Part 2 wants the player to humanize and think about people on the receiving end of violent acts, but only some of them. At the same time, it wants the player to reconsider the things they did while controlling the previous character. But the game made the player do those things. This is a linear story with no deviations. What the developers have decided will happen is what's going to happen. The first game does this too, mind you, but the second removes every scrap of subtlety. When the square button icon prompts Ellie to swing the metal pipe, the player isn't given an option. Even if they don't want to do it, even if they suspect that this character is more than just another WLF member, they only have one option. Press square and feel bad about it. On April 27th, 2020, less than 2 months before The Last of Us Part 2 launched, the leaks happened. Videos of someone playing an early build of the game were posted online. Many aspects of the story were spoiled, including the big one. Even though the footage was taken down, the damage had already been done. A great number of potential players knew Joel would die in the opening act. Speaking personally, I didn't see this footage at the time. I tried my best to avoid any and all spoilers, but it still snuck through. I didn't know how or why or when, but I knew it happened. Now that we're several years removed from that nightmare, isn't that the most Last of Us Part 2 thing that could have possibly happened? Going into the game with that knowledge conjured a giant, dreadful cloud over its opening chapter. Every time Joel was on screen, I kept thinking, is this the end? He and Abby cross paths, they arrive in the frigid room with the rest of the WLF, and it's like, is this the scene? Are we doing this now? This is the exact same sensation the game attempts to give the audience several times. During the third day of Ellie's campaign, she arrives at the aquarium, ready to confront Abby, but Abby's not there. Instead, she's greeted by two other WLF members, Mel and Owen. She interrogates them, but because this is The Last of Us, it escalates to a fight that ends up with both of them dead. At this point in the story, these two people are more bodies for Ellie to mow through. But as Ellie's campaign ends and Abby's campaign begins, we meet Mel. They're trying to find Owen, a character Abby shares happy-ish memories with. Knowing these characters' fates is a double-edged sword. Knowing for a fact that something bad is going to happen makes their presence in this act of the story grim. Owen will speak about wanting to leave the WLF and sail to California, but the audience knows he never will. At the same time, though, it can be difficult to get the audience to care about a character with a limited shelf life. Why get invested when we know what will happen? Isn't this whole thing meaningless? In fact, a great deal of Part 2 is completely pointless. In Abby's campaign, there's an incredible sequence where she and Lev travel into Seraphite territory to try and retrieve medical supplies to treat Yar's arm. It's a long, dangerous journey across these skyscrapers. They will have close call after close call. They're successful, though. Yar's arm is successfully amputated. She will survive. But once they get to the Seraphite Island, Yara is shot. The entire day prior was filled with risks, guided by the hope that Yara will survive, only for her to die anyway. That entire sequence was rendered meaningless. The ending of the game plays into this too. After the victorless fight between Abby and Ellie, a time skip occurs. A year later, Ellie and Dina are living on a farm with their baby. It's tranquil, peaceful. This whole section of the game is beautiful. At the same time, Abby and Lev are exploring Santa Barbara, California, attempting to reunite with the Firefly resistance group. But the two of them get captured and bad things happen. Because, of course they do. This is The Last of Us. Ellie catches wind of Abby's whereabouts. She leaves her quaint house in the countryside filled with people that care about her to finish the job. She arrives, fights her way through this group called the Rattlers. I don't know, just go with it. She makes it to the beach where a bunch of people are being crucified. This game, I swear. She finds Abby and Lev, cuts them down, and find a pair of boats to escape. But they're not done. They fight on the coast, bloody, tired, emaciated. It's a brutal yet awkward brawl. The two of them take swings at one another. Ellie gains the upper hand and holds her opponent beneath the water. Abby retaliates and bites two of her fingers off. This game, I swear. Ellie pushes her back below the waves. She holds her there and keeps holding and holding and holding. Then a memory. Joel. She lets go. Ellie relents. Abby gets on the boat with Lev and leaves. The entire mission, the entire reason Ellie went to Seattle in the first place, the reason for so much death and destruction, of so much trauma, of so much senseless suffering, never pays off. The entire story is rendered meaningless. At the end of Part 1, Joel makes a tough decision with serious world-altering repercussions. The journey, the bond, and the pain were all in service of something. Everything has meaning. But at the end of Part 2, Ellie returns to the house to find it vacant. Dina and the baby are gone, as are their belongings. She takes out her guitar, the last connection she has to her fallen friend, and she can't play it. She's missing two of her fingers. Ellie has lost everything. And for what? The Last of Us Part 2 is a mirror to Part 1. Everything the original game stands for is undone. Joel begins Part 1 as a shell of himself, and he ends up fulfilled through his connections to others. Ellie begins Part 2 with a stable life, companions, and a romantic partner, and ends the story as a broken person with nothing left. Part 1 was about how every person's decisions matter and can shape the future, whereas Part 2 is about how nothing anyone does matters and everything is meaningless. Part 1 delves into gray morals, asking the player if they're the good guys. Part 2 declares that everyone is justified and there are no good guys and bad guys. Part 1 is about growth. Part 2 is about being stunted. Part 1 is about survival. Part 2 is about revenge. Part 1 is about doing what's necessary. Part 2 is about being a catalyst for violence. In Part 1, Ellie goes from being rambunctious and somewhat timid to being capable and confident. In Part 2, Ellie basically becomes a serial killer. Everything that was built up in the first game is systematically removed from the second. The Last of Us Part 2 is a mirror to the first game, but it's also a mirror to much more. I want to be clear, The Last of Us Part 2 is expertly crafted. So much care and work went into bringing this world to life. These gameplay sequences are masterfully done. It's tense, it rewards player creativity, the performances are great, it's such a well-made game. But what is all this effort being put toward? The game On purpose, mind you, makes the player feel stuck and stir-crazy, like they're spinning their wheels for the majority of its runtime. It refuses to give the player any semblance of hope. It beats the player over the head with its morals, makes the player do things they might not want to do. Whole characters are there just to be killed. Whole gameplay sequences exist for no lasting narrative impact. Is it truly a radical deconstruction of violence and revenge? Or is it just edgy? Or even worse, is it just rage bait? In 2020, after the footage leaked and the game came out, it was met with extreme hostility. Honestly, some of the worst I've ever seen. The game was review bombed at launch. Members of the development staff were harassed incessantly. Laura Bailey, the actress who portrayed Abby, bore the brunt of it. Once it was revealed what her character did, so many so-called fans harassed her, sent her death threats, threatened to kill her newborn baby, all for playing a role. People were furious at Abby and wanted to actually harm the person who portrayed her, even when it didn't make sense, even though it would solve nothing, even though it would make them look foolish in the end. They wanted revenge. So much work and time and effort and talent went into creating this game, but at what cost? As The Last of Us Part 2 was nearing completion, several reports came out about the harsh crunch the staff at Naughty Dog endured. Developers worked around the clock on this game, sacrificing so much for their place of employment. But the finished product, by design, taints the original game and the studio's legacy. I honestly adore the final scene in The Last of Us. It's so simple and effective, that smash to black, it's so good. But knowing that it's no longer the end, knowing how both of these characters will end up, it doesn't really hit the same anymore. Before The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog was widely celebrated as a prestigious developer. They still are, of course, but the conversation around them has shifted quite a bit since then. When their follow-up project was revealed at the 2024 Game Awards, it was met with cheers and a hefty amount of skepticism and mockery. Again, is this not the most Last of Us 2 thing that could happen? At the end of all of this, we have a video game. A video game designed to piss off its players, to subvert every expectation. It's a game that is bitter, angry, and hopeless. And it's also a sequel to one of the most celebrated games of all time. I can't help but marvel at how brazen this game is. To have such a beloved property, one that is a household name after a single entry, and have the sequel tear it all down, set it on fire, declare that, no, there isn't any hope after all. Connections aren't what make us human. We are selfish and evil, and everything is pointless, the end. I believe the final scene mirrors how the audience is supposed to feel. We feel connected to this one thing that meant so much to so many people, and have to leave it behind. It was needed, it was necessary, but we have to accept that it's over, that things can never return to the way they were before. The Last of Us Part 2 will go down in history as one of the most polarizing sequels of all time. It destroys everything the original game stood for, leaving it a shell of its former self.